Hey everyone, welcome back to a new year of more bolt action here at Trident Wargaming. Of course, I'm your host, Andy, and with me is my battle buddy, Jason. How's it going, Jason?
I'm alive.
Welcome back. It's been a little
Hey.
bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so if you
I'm here.
guys if you guys haven't ever joined in on any of our podcasts, we do quite a few different games, bolt action being one of them, of course, anything related with bolt action usually. We do some 40K, we did some Heresy, and we also have some AOS going on, and there'll be a couple other systems that you'll see, like Necromunda and stuff, come up. So, if you're interested in that, check out our other podcasts as well. But today is mainly bolt action. So, this is kind of one of our favorites. I know Jason is still in love with the game. So am
hmm
I.
hmm
So it's great to be back and doing more podcasts for you guys. Just to start it off, big thanks to our Patreon support, going to Frederick, Dustin, Chris, Tyler, and yay! Thanks very much. Helps us out a little bit. Put that coin away, save it up for a new camera or something, some coffee for the boys, some new dice for Andy to roll because he sucks at rolling dice. Um, so thanks for the support, guys. Also, if you want, check our sites, our socials, Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz. And thanks to our sponsor, Battle Bling again. Check them out. They have a whole bunch of 3D prints and whatnot for some of your games that you might be involved in. 40K, 30K, and I believe Titanicus, and they might have some other special stuff too. Check them out. Pretty cool. But moving forward, today we're going to be talking about some bolt action. Now, a little while ago, came across a podcast, and there was some info dropped. It's kind of in the rumor mill, so take this episode with a grain of salt. But there is stuff that's going to be moving here in 2024. So I'm excited. The rumor mill is hot and heavy, and essentially, it's the big one is new edition for bolt action, right?
hmm
Third edition. So there was some hype going on about it. I'm super excited about it. I've kind of told a few of the guys, hey, new edition's coming. Hopefully, everybody's going to be pumped to get back in the game when that drops and whatnot. So, a couple of things I heard I'll share with you guys here and whatnot, and we're going to talk back and forth of maybe some ideas of things that I've read about and essentially some changes that'd be cool to see. So, but of course, first we always love to talk about the hobby. So, um, what have you been up to, Jason?
Annie, you're not going to believe it, but I actually got back into painting some Civil War epic scale.
What?
Yeah,
When did this happen?
this this week. So it's not a lot. I didn't get a lot done, but I dusted them off. Literally had to half of the first session that I spent working on them was dusting them off.
Okay,
And then
nice, very cool.
got back into it. I started with my kids. We have creativity hour
Oh,
because my youngest doesn't really do models, but he wants to paint or color or whatever with
right.
his older brother and I. So we do creativity hour, and we've been doing that after schools. And yeah,
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
got into the epic, dusted them off, and got some paint going on them.
You're forcing my hand now, aren't you?
Yes, I'm going to. What it really is. One of my buddies showed me his epic Pike and Shot force that he had just painted.
Oh, okay, very nice.
And I've been looking at that, but I said to myself that I will not buy a single other epic model until I paint this humongous Confederate and Union force that I have assembled.
I think I could convince Jason
Yeah.
easily to start buying stuff.
Yeah, probably. Probably, yeah. That's
um,
the easy part.
yeah, no kidding. Okay, you see all that behind me if you're watching on YouTube? That's the easy part.
Yeah.
The wall of shame. Yeah, it's back. So go browsing. Offer me a price. Kidding. Um, no, that's great. That's great to hear. That's awesome. That's a really good way of doing things too. Especially like if you have younger kids or kids who are involved in the game and whatnot, or wanting to get involved and just in the hobby aspect of it, because I
Mhm.
think that's what really attracts the kids to the game as well. I know Bill does it with his kids, so it's pretty cool. I know they were building like Necromunda terrain and stuff, and he'd let the kids kind of slam them together, and then he would make fine attunements and actually build, you know, the wall sections and stuff like that, right? So
Sweet.
yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. That's pretty cool. Gets them away from all the tablets and all that junk,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
right? So no, that's awesome. That's good to hear. Very good. Very good. Yeah, myself, it's been kind of all over the place, actually. Uh,
What?
yeah, as usual, as
I'm surprised, Andy, and shocked.
as per as per usual everywhere. So I've been working on some Betab Wars Mantis Warrior Space Marines for the new codex that came out. We're doing a little kind of event for that, so some cool different chapters than your regular suspects. What else? I got some AOS demons on the go, and then kind of putzed around with some of the bolt action miniatures. I actually pulled out my Soviets the other day to play.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I love my Soviets. I think they
so
might be my favorite army to play. You
yeah.
know, they really are a kick-ass army, actually. And it's awfully hard not to get pulled into the, singing of patriotic songs, and or at least humming the tune, and getting into the cartoonish voices. And for some reason, I have a lot of fun with the Soviets.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know. I yelled a couple huzzas that night.
Nice.
So I got to play Max at the local shop. I haven't played him since
Oh, sweet.
I've showed him the game essentially. So yeah, that was fun. It was a good tight, a little bit of a meat grinder kind of game that we had. But yeah, I definitely pulled them out and realized that they need some work.
Mm.
Some of my miniatures are in a little bit rough condition, so they'll be put on the docket for next year to start fixing them up. I have a whole bunch of bundles that I essentially store in these little plastic containers, and they just slide, in my hobby zone. Um, but just from using them, from being my first army, and then on top of that, using them for demo events at the big cons that I used to do a few years back. Um, you know, they kind of got banged up, and then I moved on to the Germans, and that kind of happened too. So, but that's another story. so, so yeah, all that plus a couple other games. Tried a new game the other day, and then um, ended up just rolling some dice with some other games that I play as well. So
Nice.
that's kind of where my hobby stuff has been going. Um, Miniatures everywhere, of course. So bits and pieces here and there, turns into a war zone eventually. But Yeah.
So just a thought, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're always seeking to improve, quality.
Yep.
You need to put a little electric guitar riff every time you say hobby zone.
Hobby zone.
Hobby zone.
That's gonna be our new thing now.
You gotta.
I'll put on the blonde wig so I look like Garth.
There you go.
Um, Jesus, that'd be funny. The hobby zone. I'm gonna have to write that down with a little guitar on the side of it. So, getting to our main topic, the rumor mill, bolt action, possible third edition this year actually. So some of the stuff that I had heard earlier or late, I guess last year, was that there was going to be another edition coming out 2024. Now, not only that, there's also rumors of a new K-47 and a couple other games, I believe, or not so much games, but more of more to the existing epic style games, like Epic Ancients kind of thing, right? And also another game, kind of like Combined Arms, is what I was hearing. So pretty cool to hear that kind of stuff. Usually they're pretty tight-lipped, but having that kind of surfaced and hearing a little bit of chatter on about it makes it pretty cool. From what I understand, is like there will be obviously they'll be doing new, pretty much army books. They're kind of gonna have to, I think, with the new edition.
But keep the I did they were going to keep the campaign
Books.
books,
Yeah.
which makes sense. There's no sense going over a campaign, and really the differences, the units that they add are there's not that many
Yeah.
in there. They're tweaks to equipment.
I think you'll find with that erratas for the campaign books will just to update rulings to the current rule set, and then on top of that, you'll probably get a fair bit of erratas on the older books, I guess, right? Because usually games companies they'll kind of start tying in their later books into a new edition kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
so like Germany Strikes probably would get a fair bit of erratas just to revamp it, that kind of thing, right? So as for rule books and stuff like that, that's kind of what I've heard. There'll be like a new starter set for sure if there's a new edition. As to what that would be, no idea at the moment. But we'll keep our ears open and our eyes peeled. Send out the recon forces to find out what we can find out for you guys. So, but the one thing, so before I go a little further on bolt action, K-47, which we all know was now Warlord Games is now I believe has the full rights to the game now. They did mention that it was going to be darker and grittier of a game, so I think they're going to like 1.5 version of it, and there'll be like more walkers and more plastic kits and stuff for the game. So that's cool to hear. I did try the game out previous, and I kind of went through the main rule book. It has some pretty neat features that regular bolt action didn't. And it's great because I know there's a few guys here locally that love K-47, and that's the game they would love to play. So, bonus.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the cool thing about it is if you have a bolt action army with very little investment, you have a K-47 army.
Yep. Exactly.
because their basic troops are pretty much those guys.
Yeah.
You know, and then you throw in the pulse guns and whatever else, zombies and
Yeah, the Tesla cannons, all that
werewolves and
jazz.
whatnot.
Yeah,
But you have the bones for sure already.
100%. So that's pretty cool. They also said something about a new board game, I believe, very close to Combined Arms, but I think it's more. There'll be more info in it for campaigns and stuff like that. But the other thing that was interesting to hear too is, and they've already been doing this. You guys might have noticed they're actually starting to replace a lot of their resin with plastics, especially with the tank range. So expect that to be happening. But overall, a new edition, what does that mean for us as players? Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a cost to a new edition, right? Which is always going to be the case. But, what else does that mean? There's going to be different point costs, updates to units, you know, uh, changes that probably need to be changed. I know one of the forums that I was reading and whatnot, and the first thing, it's always the first thing, and I know we've talked the shit out about this before too, and I guarantee you Jason can probably guess what I'm going to say right now. And it's the MMGs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah,
See?
yeah, 1,000% machine guns.
So, um, that's just an example of things, and guys want to see more work with them that they cause pins and whatnot, right? But I have a feeling that they're going to keep a lot of the stuff that's already there, and I think they may redesign some of the rules, maybe the nation rules in these books. They might tackle that again and
Well,
change
they have,
things.
to be fair, they have had a lot of rewrites and changes with some of the nation rules.
Mm-hmm.
Not to point fingers, Germany, but some of your nation rules are overly and unnecessarily complex to almost adding no enjoyment in the game.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And not really much of a tactical advantage, and just so I would welcome that change for sure. And for sure for me, yeah, there'll be an investment in the rule book, and maybe you'll change some of your armies. Most people have more than they need anyway,
Yeah,
so it will just be a reshuffling. Certainly, you don't need to go buy. I'm sure you won't need to go buy a whole bunch of new crap, and toys. But you might want to.
yeah,
Uh, but I don't think it will be that big of a change. I think honestly, it'll be the errata will be, you know, for the most part adopted
mm-hmm.
and put forward properly. Right, they'll just do it right the first time in the third try, and uh, and I think it'll be some tweaking, like you were saying, because honestly, the core game is pretty stable. It plays like it should every time. You don't have,
Right.
it doesn't seem like, people are getting steamrolled or the same people win every time, or so it seems fairly balanced. Certainly, there's exploits and there's the meta you can get into, but and some guys you might find an edge here or there, but even it's fairly easy to combat some of those, to combat the meta. So I don't see a big need for a change other than eliminating the necessity of so much errata, hopefully clarifying and focusing on the language in some of the rules,
Yeah, that came up a few times. Stuff I
because
read.
some of it's quite vague. It's which works perfect if you're having a game against a pal
Yeah.
or if you're in a good club or something. But if you're a more competitive player or if you're in a competitive setting, sometimes it's better to have that hard and fast lawyer lingo, brass tacks.
Eh,
You can get it
yeah.
exactly right. Uh, so for me, I can take it either way. I kind of like when they leave it a little bit in the air and you can just rule. But I definitely see there's definitely some opportunity for
Some improvement.
clarification and
Yeah, and then on that note, I do agree with you on that. They do need to kind of consolidate some of the rules, because like that, whatever triggers and affects this one rule is kind of spread out between the book in a few different places.
oh yeah, oh
Right.
god, yeah,
We all know that, like we've seen it, we've encountered it. It happens in tournaments and events. You got to look at three different places, and then you got to go check the FAQ to make sure that something's not fixed or wrong or whatever the case may be.
yeah.
That was one of the things that was brought up that people would love to see.
I mean, it's like a choose your own adventure sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you read a paragraph and then it says turn to page 63, and
yeah.
then you go to page 63 and you're like, okay, go back to page 14.
Well,
It's like, holy goodness.
it's like the index that I have printed out. It'll say such and such rule, page 13, 24, and 33, and it's like,
Yeah,
why? Just put it all in one section, right?
yeah.
So stuff like that. I would love to see them now, and maybe not all of them, but I love to see them redesign the missions, the 12 missions in the book, spice it up a little bit more, right? Um,
Or even like I agree, like 12 missions, it's a great number, sure, 12 missions, maybe like a mission generator.
yeah, there's that too, and you can do that. There's a lot of games that actually do that already.
Yeah, yeah, like the technology is there, man. Like just add
It would
some
be
spice.
it would be cool if you can play, if they had like these core missions that you can play, okay, and so like they have already, but they can also have another set of missions where they maybe use a card drawing system that this is your objective, right? Like,
Yeah,
this is for this match, this is how you have to get objectives. This is how your opponent would have to get, like, this is your missions. These are your missions, right?
mhm.
It'd be cool to see. I don't know if they'd go that route or not. It's a cool idea, and if they don't do it, I'll come up with something maybe for an event,
Yeah,
because that'd be awesome.
yeah.
So there's more good ideas.
There you go.
Hobby zone and everything. Uh,
Hubzone.
uh, oh boy, you guys are gonna just love hearing that all the time. Um, like I said, consolidating rules, streamline some rules, like Jason had mentioned as well. Um, Essentially, I would like to see some other stuff with pinning. Not so much you get like wiped out completely, but maybe you're running to the end of the board and you get chances to recoup. Um, Instead
Uh,
of, you know, I kind of like to see that, but at the same time,
I'm gonna be devil's advocate on that one. I actually like, even when it happens to me, I don't have to worry about those clowns.
mm,
The route, because what it becomes is unnecessary management for a unit that probably won't do anything. Because by the time they get that many pins, that they're starting to fail the morale check, usually their effectiveness is so worn down that
So so you kind of leave it the way it is what you're thinking?
Yeah, I actually, that's one of the things I like, is that it's uh that's one of the ways they streamlined. Same as combat. People love it or hate it, but it's fast and it's done, and I move on. I don't
Yeah.
have to count my casualties, and I have a useless unit hanging around. Either one or I didn't, and usually it's brutally bloody, and both sides end up losing, kind of, in a way. And it just happens, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what people have mentioned that too, about combat, and a lot of times they're talking about it. It's starting to turn into one of the other systems that I've played a gazillion games of, and it's like, well, no, this is not that game, so let's not go that route, right? You don't really need to prolong, because ongoing combats like that definitely would prolong your game even more than what it
Ugh.
is currently,
And
right?
and let's be honest, like, it gets dull when you have units that get clogged up in a battle, and and they're stuck in the combat. They don't
Mm-hmm.
do anything else for the whole rest of the game usually, or for a couple turns, at least half the game. Right? Each turn is 1/6 of the standard game. So if you're stuck there for multiple rounds, I mean, it doesn't take long before the game's over. And that
True.
unit, you did a lot of rolling and you accomplished not a whole lot if they go some other. So I like, it's in, you get it done, bada bing, bada boom, for good or ill. And I've had it go against me lots of times. But I also like that. It makes it risky. Like, I really, do I go for the assault? Do I not go for the, like, and yeah, you could abstract it out. You can play the whole thing out, I should say, if that's the route they want to go, I guess. But I like the abstract. It's done. You could imagine that each dice roll represents a turn if you want to.
Yeah.
Whatever, I don't care. But it's done, and you get to play the rest of the game, and you're not keeping your, you don't need your abacus, to the side to keep track of 20 different things. You just, you
No
know what
doubt.
I mean?
No doubt.
And for us chatty Cathys that like to play the game, holy gosh, I need the game to be streamlined.
Well, and that is one thing that I would like to see a little bit more, is the increase in gameplay for the game itself. Even just a regular game, could there be things that they change to speed processes up? Quite possibly, as to exactly what. Not 100% sure. A lot of stuff is pretty simplified. Um,
Yeah, I
you
think
know,
I think yeah, I think that's one of its strengths, is that it is really quite streamlined. I'm with you. I don't see where they would necessarily, what they would take out.
essentially they would, if you're looking at it, they would have to do something with how fast units can get knocked out.
You know what they can do? You know what they can do? Here you go. I have a change that will streamline it. The last remnants of math hammer
Uh-oh.
is templates.
Oh, okay.
Just
Okay.
ease off with the templates, because
That's
we all
funny.
know those guys that have their artillery piece, and they have, I mean, they're pretty much 3.5 miles away from each other.
Yeah.
They space them out exactly in a straight line so that they're technically in cohesion of the gun, but really unless you're firing a 15-inch template, which doesn't exist, you're not going to get them. And
What are you saying, Jason?
I'm saying you're a cheater. You're a damn dirty cheater.
I don't do that at all. I just put them on a base and boom, there you go.
Well, and I like making them look like they're firing the gun. But
I'm very generous with how many casualties you inflict on my units. Thank you very much. That's probably why I lose so many games. But
I would love a simplification and just, give me a dice or a number of dice to roll, and that's how many hits it gets. Bada ba bada boo. If you go down, you half it. Bada ba ba. That easy. I roll a die. That's my hits.
yeah.
Great.
And there's people that disagree with that. Well, not disagree with the point of making it faster, but they would rather see, more to it. So if your artillery
Yeah.
or your mortars miss, they actually want to see it scatter.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, here's the. Sorry to cut you
No,
off.
it's all good. Go ahead, Jason.
But here's what I say to those people. There are other games. There are other games that are more in depth. That's their bread and butter, and they're great. I play or have. Can't say I have force. I have the books, and I technically have armies for them, I guess. But played a couple times. But like Chain of Command, it is much more nitty gritty. But still fairly streamlined, but it has a lot more of that nuance that you might be looking for, and that's great. There's other games out there that if they really want to have charts and reference this and that, that's great. Do you want to make it as realistic as you can? Have at it. But I just see that as like like trying to turn, like playing ping pong in your basement like it's Wimbledon.
Gotcha.
It's a different game in a different league. It doesn't,
Yeah, that's the thing with wargaming and with bolt action in general as well and here locally, and in the surrounding area, we don't really have too many actual tournaments taking place. I think, honestly, here with Trident, we've probably ran the most events in the last few years. Just, Western Canada, from what I know. There might be some in BC or Victoria or whatever. Calgary, there's a couple here and there. But we don't actually have any, like, large, competitive events or anything like that happening. So we don't really see too much of that. Most of the guys are pretty down to earth playing here and just having fun rolling dice. But there are a couple games that, they definitely have a little bit more tactical communication between the players. Let's just say that. So, tactical plays, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I like it when a game plays good and plays at a decent pace, where, Jason, you're moving your units, you're doing your thing, you're telling me what you're doing and you're figuring out your numbers and I'm involved, right?
Yeah.
It's not just, okay, go ahead, do your thing. I'm going to hit the washroom, grab a pop and talk to whoever's in the section here. I'll be back, right? I like it when there's that interaction between the two players almost at every point in time of the game. That's the one thing with bolt action is you do get that. So I hope they keep that kind of thing going in a new edition, which I'm sure they will. Like you said, they probably won't change a heck of a lot in the main rule set, but there's definitely stuff to improve on for sure, right? So
Yeah, and I mean, and really, they'd be silly to. Like, it's their most successful game by far,
Yeah.
and has been consistently since they dropped it, the first edition.
Yeah.
So it seems silly to, you know, change the wheel when it really it works. It's a great game. It plays consistently. There is meta, but it's not crazy. It's it's fairly easy to get around it. So yeah, a guy might bring a, you know, a shit kicker list to intimidate people or something, but you could really most of those you can counter quite easily,
Yeah.
right? So it's just you happen to what usually happens is you have a list that's designed specifically to counter a specific list, and randomly you fight that guy on that day, and you hurt his feelings, and then you're good.
So that's
But there's not much to change, I don't think. But certainly tweaks, I'm all for. MMGs, absolutely. Some of the oh geez, templates, ditch them. Jeez Louise.
someone had mentioned like
Also, I'm an old fat guy. I have to lean over a table trying to get a, like, oh, how many guys are covered? Is it 3 or 2? Like, I don't fucking care. It's like, that's what PS 99%. I say you tell me, and I'm good with whatever number you give me, because I don't want to lean over the table, break half the scenery just to get that stupid
see
number. Get rid of
and
the template.
and I'll break the scenery because it's my scenery to make sure that I could get my monocle down enough, my diamond cutting spectacle. You are quarter inch away. Yeah.
Oh,
No, just kidding.
yeah.
But no, yeah, I totally get it. Totally get it. I mean, we've played on a 10-foot by 6-foot board that one day, and like, I had a hard time looking over to see or move my units, kind of thing, right? So I get that part too. You know, with playing the game for what it is, and getting back to what you're talking about with like the gaming, and like there's not guys who are super hardcore into the I gotta win kind of the game kind of thing. Is I think it'd be neat if they did come out, and maybe not right away, but maybe if they came out with an actual competitive package, right? Where they have missions that are more built for maybe a tournament scene, right? That way that they could have play on both kind of, I guess, kind of where players kind of stand. Now I know, in my opinion with bolt action, I love doing the events as thematic events, right?
Mhm.
Having an idea behind the event, a theme, and I've had guys come up to me and ask me, "Hey, here's my list. Do you think it's too strong? You know, or should I tone it down, or whatever?" And a lot of times it's like, you know what? That's your decision, right? It's that you have to decide. If you're asking me right now, more than likely, right?
Maybe you've already
But in
figured out.
in my opinion, I can look at the army and be like, because I'm one of those players that I'll play against anything.
Yeah.
I
I
don't,
love
you know.
asymmetrical games, honestly.
So yeah. So like, I would like to see something like that set up. Maybe have a compendium that comes out for tournament play. You
Well,
know.
even forgetting that, I mean, you have 12 scenarios.
Yep.
Seems like what they've done in the first and the second edition. I mean, why not have, instead of 6 battle scenarios and 6 standard scenarios, make the standard scenarios straight up. And they really are, honestly. They're But maybe there is a way. I'm not that gamey of a person, so I wouldn't know as well. how some other systems have done it.
Yeah.
But maybe there is a way to make it more competitive off that. But I'm all for having the ability to play more competitively. Or in my mind, when you say competitive package, you mean less chance of an asymmetrical matchup, i.e., the terrain in the scenario is much more uh, determined. The scenario parameters themselves are much more deterministic and equal.
Yeah,
And
that's what ends up happening with those kind
yeah,
of right a balanced playing field, and then it
yeah,
becomes essentially it becomes generalship of the player, right?
yeah, and
But what I'm talking about too, though, is more of like the battlefield can be whatever the battlefield is, like the terrain setup and stuff. You can still have those themed tables, but I'm talking more of like maybe they have progressive scoring turn to turn, right? You know,
oh yeah, yeah,
1 point, not like my mission I had for my event where it's like, oh yeah, I blew them out 53-3. Um, 1 point per objective that you hold, kind of thing. But stuff like that where you need to hold objectives, or not always like kill points. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Have things kind of circulate and uh, have an equal chance for both players to be able to score these things and whatnot. But have more of that happen compared to like the one mission where you grab the middle objective and you have to transport it off your side of the board, right?
He hates that scenario.
You know,
Jeez Louise, how many times have you gotten that scenario? You rolled it, and you're like, both players look at each other and say, "Reroll."
oh, 100%.
Let's get rid of those scenarios because we all know there's three of them. At least get rid of those and put in new ones.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm all for different scoring systems, or even have that as like where we were saying a generate your own scenario. Have a couple of parameters or
100%.
scoring systems that you could use, describe what they are and how they're used, and how you can incorporate them.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom.
There you go. 100%. So yeah, a lot of good ideas, and a lot of mentions by a lot of people online, of course, for things they like to see changed, and also some of the rumors of stuff that's kind of out there. So one thing I think is going to be happening, and we've kind of already seen this on the go already. I would not be surprised later in the year. You're probably going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to see a new Japanese kit and possibly a new Soviet kit. Right? Those are still the two old, slotting the gun in the hands
Yeah.
of the miniature. They've already started switching out a lot of the other main ranges, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that happen. So there's that.
But I have so many Soviets, Andy. And
Yeah,
if
so
they
do I.
release new Soviets, I'm going to have to buy new Soviets. I'm not changing them. I'm not getting rid of my old ones, but I will just have to add more.
Well, unlike the French, I purged all those pewters to get the plastics. If that happens, probably hold on to my stuff anyways. Right, it's plastics, but it's like the British. I still have some of the old British infantry as well.
I have so many old Americans.
So,
So many.
but I can see a lot of the new kits coming out like that. Like that's their new style. It's smart. The miniatures are more refined. They're better. They're a bit more durable, and the weapons are sturdy, so a little thicker,
I
which is good.
I have seen they've been going through with actually pretty quickly uh, a lot of the support weapons, and it seems like they're kind of the teams putting them in the boxes,
Yeah,
the HQ box and support weapons box, kind of making it for most armies now.
yeah, yeah. That's their
And
new style.
they're in the Warlord resin with the dice. I actually like getting the dice for each team in there.
Nice. Yeah, I don't think I've gotten any of those as of late because I mainly have all that stuff from buying like the starting armies.
Yeah, I haven't
So
bought any of the new ones yet. No,
so
but
be interesting to see what they do. Also with now, I didn't hear anything about this. This is just speculation, but it would be cool to see them do something with Tank Wars.
yeah,
So the book.
and oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that the current book right now has just enough info and rulings and whatnot to essentially just get you playing and getting experience and having some skills to use and then just duking it out, right? But there's really not much else. You know, you lose your crew, you get new crew, you get experience, you get to use these abilities, you get to collect a nice range of tanks, you know, and play in a league or play whatever you want to play. But that's really about it, you know. Uh, be nice to see something else in there as well, a little bit more detail. Just kind of like what they do with like, you know, Blood Red Skies. They came out with the main game, then they came out with another 2 or 3 supplements or whatever it was. You know, stuff like that, right? That'd be pretty cool too. So here's hoping. Just a speculation. Be nice to see something.
That's right.
But yeah, other than that, like as we, you know, hear more, we'll let you guys know as well. Hopefully, we'll get some more stuff confirmed of what's happening. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough because there'll probably be. I wouldn't be surprised. Adepticon. There'll probably be maybe a reveal then. Maybe LVO. There might be a reveal.
My guess, my guess is Warlord Day
Yeah.
or Warlord Days. I think it is. I don't know. The one they do in UK. They'll have they have all of the guys, big
Mm-hmm.
guys, do a talks, and that seems to be where they've revealed all of their
Plans and whatnot.
big upcoming plans. So that's my guess. But what do I know?
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. You know, whatever you guys may have heard out there as well, let us know. Type it in the chat there and whatnot. Love to hear that kind of stuff. Keep our eyes open to see what comes down the pipe. Should be an exciting time. I know I'm hyped. I know me and Jason will be doing a campaign of sorts with a couple of other players and your son, of course.
Yep.
So that'll be exciting. Still got to kind of pick factions and stuff, but I'm sure we got them all.
Yeah.
So that should be exciting. We'll get more games in. There'll be more events, of course, throughout the year and whatnot. Definitely trying to do some different little events, and then also helping Jason too. You know, at the shop with anything that's going on there, and getting some good games and getting the hype back into bolt action.
Hype it up.
And other games too. So, but yeah, we will definitely have to arrange a weekend hanging out and gaming as well, Jason.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been a little bit, so we'll have to pick something and play it out.
I've been hankering for some more Soviet action. So
Yeah, we still got to do that. The scenarios.
yeah,
So, and that's the thing too, is you guys are gonna get a lot more of our war stories and whatnot from games that we play, and hopefully, I'm not sure when, but I would like to try getting some nice pictures done up. Also, we might try to do kind of a semi little battle report in the future. So
nice.
yeah, just to share with you guys. I'm going to start ramping up again on some of the unboxings for some of the new kits that come out. So be on the lookout for that. Probably try to do some filming for, little, this is how I paint my French kind of thing. So it'll be busy. It'll be fun. Hopefully it'll be some good excitement for Bolt Action and surrounding games as well. And we also might expand a little bit on some other war games.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, and as we continue, we kind of changed our schedule up a little bit. So we'll be essentially having 2 episodes a month, and they kind of will be like double episodes, so they'll be a little bit longer, a little bit more content. So right after we're done here, I'll be actually in another cast with another gentleman going over some of the historical games that Mike plays. So
Nice.
mainly Black Powder and whatnot. So a little special for you guys. So yeah, that should be good. So I'll see you guys in the next half here, and Jason will be back on down the road, of course, on some of the other episodes and whatnot. So thanks again, Jason.
No worries. Thank you. And
Yeah.
hashtag drop the template.
Yeah. Don't forget to send some of those pictures of those little guys you're painting too, Jason. I'd like to see that stuff, and maybe get some of it posted up for the crowd to see what you're working on too. So.
I'll just make sure they're not high detailed photos.
Yeah. What's that blur? Oh, that's what you're working on. Blue and blue.
Yep.
So, very good. Very good. Well, thanks for joining in this session, and we'll catch you on the next round.
See you.
Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of this episode. Trident Wargaming, Andy here again with you. Today I also have a good buddy, Mike. Welcome to the show for the first time.
Thanks for having me.
No problem.
I appreciate it.
Anytime. So today is a little different. We're doing some other historical wargaming chatter, of course. Mike has definitely introduced me into Napoleonics and Black Powder and a couple of other historical games as well. So, add more to the stack, of course. So, but if you guys are interested in it and whatnot, you'll see a couple of links in our descriptions and whatnot, leading you to some of the games that we're probably going to be talking about here and whatnot. Mainly from Warlord Games, but there are others out there too. So definitely check that out. So yeah, we're going to be essentially talking about Black Powder and a couple other games, like I said.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
As always, how we kind of start off the episodes and whatnot is we kind of go into like the hobby front, the hobby zone kind of thing. So what have you been working on, Mike?
Okay, well, so I'm not going to lie. I kind of did all my projects for this year. So I keep a running total every year. So I painted I'm a little over 300 models painted this year.
Nice.
So so I kind of scaled it back a bit, and I've been working on another game, but I'm not going to bring it up here. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to make any more addicts. But I've just been kind of playing around with those a bit. But I'm working towards buying a Greek army, like an ancient antiquity army for the new year.
Nice.
Going to use that for some Warhammer Ancients as well as Hail Caesar. So right now I'm just in the planning phases. Like what do I buy? What do I like to paint? That sort of thing. So
nice.
because again, it's another major project, right? So,
no, that's a good way of doing it. I kind of do the same thing. It's more of what appeals to me first compared to like what the army is all about.
100%.
So, no, that's cool. That's awesome. 300 miniatures this year?
Yeah. So, it's something like that. Like, I want to say it's a bit more, but then I don't want to get into like bragging. But it was something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
So, I mean, if I just have a quick look here. Yeah. 100, 120. Yeah. So something like that. About 300 miniatures,
That's
but it's,
awesome.
across various systems, right? So.
Yeah, for sure. Nice. I know you got your bolt action army done, so.
I did, yeah. So,
that.
I mean, that was, for that tournament, that was, I kind of had some of that British Army done. And then when I saw, like, the scenario where it could bring reinforcements, I was like, oh, I don't have that many models. So, what is that, about 2 weeks out from the tournament there, I think. So, I whipped over to our local store, grabbed a box, and bang those out in a couple of weeks, just in time for the tournament. So
nice.
Yeah, I mean they're British, right? They're pretty easy to paint. So yeah,
that's awesome. Awesome.
I probably just insulted somebody with like 2,000 points of British unpainted sitting on their shelf or something. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no. Myself, I'm kind of everywhere, like usual. Scatterbrained a little bit on it, but lately it's I've got some Warhammer and 40K going. I do have the start of a British Army on the bench for not only bolt action, but I also have Team Yankee stuff up there too.
Oh yeah, nice.
So,
nice. Okay.
So just a little bit of a mix of everything.
Cool.
And then of course there's terrain for other systems that definitely is going to be on the docket. So. But yeah, as always, there's always something going on. So, but to continue on with the episode, black powder. You're. I know you love the historicals a fair bit.
I do.
Right?
I do. Yeah.
So
yeah, borderline on addiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for this segment, you introduced me to Black Powder plus Jason, and we had a blast playing that game.
Thank you.
So, that's awesome to see. I'm glad that we were able to get you a little bit of table time too, showing off the system at the event.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah,
I hope to do a bit of more of that in the future as well.
Sure.
And then see if we can get stuff going on with other players in the community. But overall, I mean, your background a little bit in gaming, how long you've been playing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So, so I kicked off, I don't know, it was over 30 years ago now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up the Devil's Game, which is Warhammer 40,000, back in second edition. And I called the Devil's Game because it always seems to sit on your shoulder, right? And tell you, like, behind me.
Yeah.
And then, that kind of, but before then there was always like the Ralpartha miniatures and Airfix, models. And there was always that historical kind of grab at me, but there was nothing really in my community where I grew up.
Right.
And then, so as time went on, miniature gaming just kind of became the thing to do. for most of us that were moving away from RPGs and getting into that scene. And then I think kind of what really hit it for me was when I started playing Warhammer Fantasy. So blocks of troops,
Rank and file.
although not magic, yeah, rank and file, so that grabbed me right away. And I've always been a kind of a fantasy, nerd that way. Love that stuff. But what's funny is after, kind of looking at it, for years, I settled on the Empire Army, very German-esque, Renaissance era, 30 Years War,
Yep.
that sort of thing. Puffy shirts, cannons, muskets, pikes. Like, I just loved it.
The checkered
And
uniforms. Yeah.
exactly. Huge mustaches, giant mustaches with ridiculous, shirts, puffy shirts. I loved it. I don't even know why. And, so that kind of kicked off, and I played that army for years. And then as, time went on, I started looking, and I say the internet became a little bit more available, which is really sad that I have to say that, but it's just a fact.
Yeah.
Because the internet wasn't common when I was growing up. We always went to our stores, and I continued that trend for years. But as kind of time went on, I started looking at what different games, right? And at this point, I was moving away from anything that was kind of science fiction, fantasy. There was always things that I'll always love. Whether it's because of childhood or just because I kept it on my shelf for a minute.
Right.
But I started looking at other games. Man, I'm just trying to think here. So, like, I always love Napoleonics. I don't know what it is. Muskets, outrageously colorful uniforms. Just all of it. I kind of loved the Sharp series on TV from BBC back in the '90s. That really kicked it off.
Yep.
And and anyone that's seen those, they know they're horribly cheesy. And I think that's part of the joy of it. And then as you read the books, then it sinks in a little bit more. So, with all that being said, and I'm kind of ranting here, but I started looking at games like, so there's a company called Iron Ivan Games. They made some skirmish them.
Okay.
And so they did a World War II game. But from that transitioned me into kind of looking at bolt action when it first came out. I played Flames of War for a bit, for a couple of years. Obviously, it was very popular, still is. But then what really hooked me, I think, at the end was I picked up a rule set called LaSalle by Sam Mustafa Games. So if you've ever looked at his rule sets, they are the word complicated isn't what I would use, but they are a little bit more detailed than your average game. They're not laid out in the best order, so you kind of got to read the rules a couple times, but playing them is awesome. But then when I bought Black Powder, so I can't remember when that was now. I want to say like 2013 or something. 2000 must have been.
Right.
Anyway, that's when I was hooked, and I said, "This is it," because the rule system was very friendly. It was flexible. It said right in it, "Have fun." You didn't have to include things you didn't want to. They gave you a whole ton of rules that you could make your own units with, and then they started releasing not so much army books, but era-specific books. So books for, say, like the American Civil War, or the Wars of Napoleon, but like in the East, Wars of Napoleon in the West, and endless Zulu Wars,
Yep.
French Indian Wars. And so with that flexibility, because Black Powder covers 200-year time span of the horse and musket era. And so, there's going to be a lot going on. And then everyone's going to have their love of something in that era. Like, so for example, I'm not a fan of the tricorn hat, like the classic pirate kind of three-pointed hat. I don't like it.
Right.
But I love me some Shakos, like some tall stovepipe Shakos that, were common in the Napoleonic era. And I think everybody, even though, I don't know how many people, are listening outside of Canada. I'm sure there's some. But for some weird reason, Canadians love American Civil War. I don't know what it is. I really don't. I don't know if it's our close proximity to our cousins just on the other side of the border, whether it's because some of us grew up, maybe with some American relatives. I don't know. But I love it too. And I don't even know why. I've never seen an American Civil War battlefield. I'd like to go sometime. I've watched movies. I've read books. I think it's the whole war's fascinating. So of course I built an army for it. So I think that's kind of led us up to where I am now. But black powder, like like you said, I do like it quite a lot. I have 3 massive Napoleonic armies and an American Civil War army.
Yeah.
And if somebody were to just tell me to do a Zulu War army, I would do one for both of those, both the Anglos and the Zulus. I'd pretty much do anything for both. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I love it. And what's beautiful is, and I will say this about black powder, is that if you have played Warhammer Fantasy in the past, and you've played bolt action, nothing in that rule set will come as a shock.
Okay.
And that's what I like. If you roll a 12 in the game, they call it a blunder, but it's the same thing as foobarring in bolt action. But, you're moving your troops around like you would in Warhammer Fantasy. You have to wheel, you have to move them in blocks.
That's right.
Right. And so it becomes very familiar. You're not rolling buckets of dice. Like I think, 12 dice, I put 12 dice on the table and I think you play the demos, right? And, you see
that
you
that
really
surprised
only roll,
me. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what, 6 dice, 7 dice. So
It's quite the
yeah.
It's quite the epic visualization of a battle on the field that I've ever seen. Right? Like
Totally.
Like, we had 2 players on each side playing the game, and with a mass amount of infantry blocks and everything, and your command and artillery, and it felt like, holy crap, like this is it. Like this is what's happening, right? Your cavalry's charging down the flank,
Exactly. Yeah, like it felt decisive, right?
Yeah.
Like it almost felt like you were there.
Yeah, and it's fun. It was super fun. Like I still remember going to the front counter and grabbing some drinks for everybody, and Dave was saying, "It sounds like you guys are having a lot of fun over there." I'm like, "Yeah, we're hooting and hollering and stuff like that, right?"
Yeah.
So
and that's just it. Yeah. Right. And so at the end of the day, I think that's the whole point of gaming, right, is to have fun. Unless you have some weird sadistic attitude where you want to torture yourself by painting hundreds of miniatures and they get angry when you start losing, which seems like a horrible hobby. But the joy, like I think that I get, from black powder is, from purchase to painting to, completed project, right? I will say, you can, a lot of people have seen it and said, oh my gosh, like I need 300 models to play this game. Yeah, in some cases, like you do, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. But hey, if you do that one thing all year, and you paint those models, when you're done, you know, well, that's something to be proud of, and it looks
Oh yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
100%.
And you know, and I've seen some, you know, and I'm not insulting anyone. Well, mostly because I saw this online, so I wouldn't even know the person anyway. But I've seen some pretty poorly painted Napoleonic armies up close. But the
Okay.
pictures zoomed out, right? You know, when they're brought back, you know, like the 2 foot rule, you know, arm's length away from the model. You know, the guy had painted like, I roughly counted, it was something like 700 models.
Whew.
And I was just mind blown. It looked awesome, right? And so, you know, yeah, if you're going to go down and look for eyeballs on, you know, 300 models, you know, then maybe it's not that cool. But, you know, at a distance, it looks awesome, right?
And
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And that's just it, right?
That's
it's
the
like,
initial,
you know, exactly.
yeah, the initial view on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome though. That's
So,
that's cool. I mean, it's one of those passion projects too, right? Black powder.
100%.
So,
It is a passion.
yeah.
That's just it, you know. And I will say, you know, just a, you know, sidebar here real quick is with, you know, because Black Powder has sister games, right? Which is Hail Caesar and um, Pike and Shot. And I call them sister games only because the rules are so similar. Because they're unlike Bolt Action. Bolt Action takes a unique concept of its own.
That's right.
Mostly for because of the sake of technology. It is what they're trying to encompass in Bolt Action. But you know, when you're talking, you know, the basic shooting of like close troops, whether it's a bow or a musket, you can kind of cover that off the same. Works a little bit different when it's a machine gun or, you know, submachine guns or, you know, automatic, semi-automatic rifles. But you know, Hail Caesar, Pike and Shot, Black Powder, their rules are all very similar. Like if you know one rule set, you can pick up the other book and kind of, you know, read the rules through real quick and figure it out. Which is beautiful. If you know, if anyone's interested, and they say, okay, I like the concept of Black Powder, but really I want to play English Civil War, which falls into the Pike and Shot era. Yeah, go buy that rule book because you know I will. One thing I will say about Warlord is of their mainstay games that I own them all and I like them all, which I cannot say about any other company, and that like a company that produces more than one rule set,
Right.
Or more than one, you know, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, whatever. But Warlord, arguably, I can say yes. Every mainstay game, you know, and I say mainstay because SPQR was, oh boy. Anyway,
They have a lot. They have a lot of smaller games. Yeah.
Right. You know, and again, like I haven't dug into, you know, Blood Red Skies. Although, like I've read the rules, I like it. The concept's cool. It's just kind of not my thing. You know, Victory at Sea looks super awesome, but again, it's just not my kind of cup of tea. You know, I'll probably never play what's it called, Satorium Dog or whatever.
Oh yeah, the Judge Dredd looking kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not my
Yeah,
cup
like
of tea either.
No, I'll never touch that.
I've
But
got
their mainstay games, beautiful. Like they're all great, right? So
no, it's awesome.
and so yeah. Arguably, I would say, you know, if anyone's interested, yeah, you can pick up any of them and you'd have a good time.
Nice. So there you go. There, that kind of gives you a little spiel on Black Powder for kind of what it is at the moment. Nice thing about Black Powder and these other games, and it's starting to happen more and more now, is one of the topics and questions I was going to ask you is, you know, is there more than one way of playing these systems?
Oh man!
And I know the answer to this, but
yeah,
you know, you're more the expert on it, so
sure. So yeah, so I mean, you know, the games I've played, and the games I've played, the people I've introduced the games to, you know, obviously, I'll just talk specifically Black Powder. I guess the beautiful thing about black powder is there's no set scale. So if you want to play in 28 millimeter, that's fine. 54 millimeter, 10, 15, 6, it doesn't matter. They explain it on the rule book that you can do that. I mean, even, Warlord, we know now, makes a set, Epic series, which is supposed to encompass more models on the board. So, and that's great. I'm a 28 millimeter junkie. I won't lie. I like to be able to see my models when I paint them. So, but I will say this: the more people you have playing, the better.
Right.
So there's always going to be someone. You get a group together, and maybe you got 4 guys in the group, and someone says, I want to play French. And somebody says, I want to play British. Well, that's easy. I mean, those guys can they can play games all day because those were 2 main adversaries in, Napoleonic era.
Yeah.
I mean, true. Well, in just about every era. And so, but then maybe somebody else says, hey, what can I play that kind of allies with the French, right? And this is one thing I've told people is, go check your family history, because you would be surprised, where you've come from, and your ancestral roots, if you have them tied to Europe, what your ancestors might have done during the Napoleonic Wars, and who they were allied with, right? And who turned sides when, and because all those, there's so many armies. So when you get into a multiplayer group like that, maybe, generally we play division size. So, which is, I say division's a rough term, but rough and loose military terminology. But, you're looking at about 12 units on the table. And each unit being about 24 models of infantry or 8 to 12 of cavalry, 1 or 2 cannons in a unit, but roughly about 12 units.
Okay.
But if you got 2 players per side, or maybe 3 players per side, well, now you're painting less stuff, and maybe you're only getting together once a month or once every 6 weeks or whatever, and everyone just dumps all their stuff on the table, and you say, look, this is our side, we're British, Portuguese allies against your French, Polish, I don't know, whatever, barbarians or whatever, and it makes for a very interesting game. Or maybe it's just you and a buddy, and you're going to make these huge armies.
Yeah,
that's totally fine too. There is a point system with the game. You don't have to use points. You can just make a scenario. You can say this is our objective and throw whatever you've got down on the table. Because again, the idea is that you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, imagine Bolt Action where you didn't use points. Just one game, and you said, I'm just going to bring a full platoon of infantry, and you're going to get, a machine gun and a tank. You know what I mean? You'd think more, you'd have to plan better, and really that's what it's about, right? It's just kind of experiencing different ways to play, a game that would potentially get stale. I would imagine if you just every time you played, you just said, this is my British army, and I'm going to stand here, and this is your French, and we're just going to shoot each other, and it's going to be really boring, but man, will it look cool. So but it can only look cool for so long, right?
No doubt.
Kind of like Flock of Seagulls hairdos, right? Those guys were cool in 1983, but after a while, it's not cool anymore. So. Plenty of ways to play, right? Plenty of ways.
Nice. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I ended up getting my division of British and whatnot, and of course as I'm scrolling through the product and I find the Portuguese, and I'm just the little schoolgirl scream of excitement.
Yeah.
I'm like, that will be something in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't see it. You don't see that stuff too much in war games. So when
right. No,
that's my background, right? So it's kind of like
right.
cool. And then you start researching things, you start looking at things, you start reading a lot more, So
that's exactly why I said it, right? It's
yeah.
like, you hit that family line somehow, and that's just it. Like, I won't beat the point to death, but I met many guys who have built armies solely because of their own last name, or because they found out their great grandfather was, Dutch resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my grandfather's Dutch. That's the army I'm playing. Yeah, that's cool, man. Like totally, right? It works the same way for French Indian War, or American Civil War. Like maybe your family are originally from the South, like, and you want to play Confederates. Like that's cool. Like like not not the Confederates are cool, but like the concept of building an army that you enjoy is what's cool, right? And so and I mean, someone's got to beat the bad guys. Like that's just it. Like someone's got to play Confederates, someone's got to play Germans in bolt action. It's just the way it goes. That's historical wargaming. Someone's always the bad guy.
It is.
So
and a lot of times I found it was funny because I found even with like American Civil War, just buying the miniatures and whatnot, anybody I knew that was like into the game, every time I asked what army they were playing, it was always Union, right?
Right.
And it was kind of like, okay, well, we kind of want. I don't want to be playing like Union on Union all the time, kind of things. So,
right,
I'll go the other route, and at least we have fun doing that. Kind
exactly.
Of thing, right? So
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, I can see with the armies, and there's still a good selection of forces that you can play around with and use, and of course miniature wise, there's definitely a lot of companies and warlords stance on miniatures is essentially these are our games, but you guys aren't bound by using our minis for our games be a tournament or not, kind of thing, right? Or an event,
right,
or whatever.
100%.
Which I love
100%.
that. I love that idea. Just love it. It makes for a much more healthier community and gaming experience as well, in my eyes. So
yeah, 100%.
So I guess leading into that, I mean, you've been into it for a while. What's kind of like the resources? What are some of the places you would suggest for a new player to kind of get into if they need some miniatures, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, so this is I say this is you don't necessarily, like, if you're gonna we're talking specifically black powder, get the rule book, have a look through it, and then say, this is kind of the era I want to get into, and just play what you like. Like, if you like the American War of Independence, otherwise known as the Rebellion, for those of you south of the border, so play them, play the Americans and their Continental Militia, or play the Redcoats, crushing them in so many battles until eventually they lose. Just play what you like. I will say that there are endless resources. The internet obviously is, you could Google anything nowadays, but if you want to hold on to a book in your hand, then I would say Osprey Publishing is by far the superior kind of go-to for anything really, like everything from Greek hoplites to the Waffen SS to, I don't know, French Napoleonic infantry tactics. Like, I even own that book. It's so outrageous. Like, that somebody would write something about that,
Yeah.
But hey, man, I bought it. Like so.
Yeah, it's like
There's going to be. Yeah.
It's like if any of you guys are checking this out on YouTube, I'm just holding up some of their books.
Exactly.
They have some really good info and background and even pictures and artists, work on what the uniforms and whatnot would look like too. So,
the artwork is phenomenal, and it gets the point across. See, the problem with historicals, and really the only problem I have found is that no historian changes wording. So when I was younger, and I would read the term Shako or Shako, depending on how you want to pronounce it.
right.
I had no idea what that was. So as I read more, I found out, okay, it's their hat. They come in different shapes and sizes. Okay, now I understand. But some of the terminology like facings or piping or all this other stuff. Well, like I didn't understand that when I was younger.
Yeah.
And then, but once you read like a single Osprey book, they just spell it out for you. It's literally historical wargaming for dummies, right? And that's the beauty of those books. And they have everything available.
They do.
Now, what's nice is, and I'll just kind of segue into miniatures.
Yep.
Is that, like you said, the beauty of historicals, excuse me, is that essentially when you paint, your, Johnny Reb unit, for say American Civil War, they're always Confederates. Like no one's ever going to come out and, provide you a codex update or, do a meta watch on you or say all of a sudden, here's, third edition Confederates. It doesn't happen. Right. Yeah. So they're Confederates forever. And so once they're painted, they're painted. They can be used for different rule sets. Maybe you want to tweak them a bit. Maybe you want to go back and add a different color other than gray. I don't know. But at the end of the day, no one's going to come trouncing on your army. Like some companies we've seen in the past have done that. And so you can use your stuff for multiple systems. And with the miniatures themselves, there's kind of three go-to companies that I use. So I use Victrix, Perry Miniatures, and Warlord. So Warlord, not so much for Napoleonics, but I do like a lot of their command models. I will give them that.
Right.
Victrix I love for their skirmishers. And anything that involves skirmishers, beautiful. Or their armies of antiquity, like their Greeks, Persians. Those models are just like they're top notch. Nobody can compete with their plastics. But Perry Miniatures is, I'm going to say, obsessed with the black powder era. I think on their website they have somewhere in the range of about 2,000 items that are specific to black powder.
A lot.
And when I say items, I mean, yeah, like I mean, they got tons of plastic box sets, tons of they have, French Command 1804. Like that's awfully specific. And there's going to be someone that loves it, right? Me, not so much, but there's someone out there. So, Perry is kind of, you want to get into black powder, you hit up Perry, and mix in some Warlord, and then go grab yourself some Victrix stuff for some skirmishers. It's beautiful that way. But when it comes to where I will say, and I'll just, go off on a little side tangent here. I got a buddy I know that's going to listen to this. And for 30 plus years, he's listened to my tangents. You know who you are, Brian. So anyway, he, but if you're going to get into Pike and Shot, and I'll just say this, Warlord is the only place I would go.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. And the reason is their box sets are bang on. They give you exactly every kind of Pike and Shot box set gives you exactly what you need for your units. The command models are perfect. Perry does have some English Civil War stuff that can translate over kind of anywhere in that Pike and Shot era pretty easily. Well, 30 Years War, English Civil War era pretty easily. And I have used some of their stuff. But Warlord makes everything you need. They have Scots, they have parliamentarians, they have royalists, they have Swedish, they have imperialists, like anything in the Pike and Shot era, Warlord has it. And it was only recently that I found out that back in the day when Warhammer Ancients was around, they had a rule set called English Civil War. And it was a standalone game based on the English Civil War, but kind of Warhammer fantasy-esque. So you could picture like the Empire fighting the Empire is really what it would probably look like. But the rules themselves were written by John Stallard.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so it all made sense to me then. As soon as I found that out, I said, yeah, you know what? That's why his Pike and Shot era type stuff is so amazing. Because that's probably the era that he loves the most, because everyone's got something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's got that one historical era that they, even if they're not historical gamers, they would say to themselves, I would play that, no questions asked. And I know a lot of guys say it's Rome. They say, oh, I would play Roman legions. But you come talk to me when you painted 300 Roman legionnaires and put on 300, shield decals. Then we'll talk about you playing Rome. But yeah. So those companies are the ones I would go to. And then there's tons of companies out there that make the odds and sods, right? So you want the odd kind of maybe you want a Portuguese commander, 1809 or something, right? Well, there's a company out there that does it. And flags, flag standards, banners, whatever you want to call them, colors. Flags of War is the go-to. Flags of War. Yeah, flagsofwar.co.uk or something. I can't remember.
We'll get that link for everybody.
Yeah, they've got it all, like every era, their stuff is phenomenal. I can't even explain it. It just basically put it through a printer, and it just comes out fantastic. I've used it on numerous flags. All my 30 Years War stuff for Pike and Shot is there. It was purchased from them. They're phenomenal.
Nice.
Many of the guys I know, use their stuff for flags and banners.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't even know about them. I'll have to check them out too.
Oh, they're phenomenal.
So that's a good little resource right there.
Yeah.
So very nice. Yeah, it's funny because within the last few months, I've had quite a few people talk to me about Pike and Shot.
Oh, really?
And random guys. I was over at Industrial Park Games the one night, and
right.
I was just hanging out with Jason over there, and somebody was talking to one of the guys up front about bolt action and Pike and Shot and this and that, and of course my radar ear just started.
Right. Really? Yeah.
So I went over there, and the guy was like, he's never played out a store. He's interested in these games, and I told him, hey, there's a site you can go to it, check things out, and then like Jason, he has mentioned it before too, and then a couple other guys have just kind of in passing, I've heard it come up, and I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna have to take a look at it in the new year. So.
Wow! You just got me super excited now. That is, oh man, Pike and Shot is one of those. So Pike and Shot, I don't mean to cut you off here. I'm just going to go on a little bit. So for anyone that's not familiar, Pike and Shot, by Warlord covers off a kind of the series of the puffy pants and the introduction, pikes and muskets and pike blocks, if you will. some famous names out of there, like Father Tilly and Gustavus Adolphus. He's kind of the grandfather of, well, what a lot of would consider like the modern war. And this is pre black powder. And some of the, English Civil War is brutal. It's brutal. It was awful, awful event in history. For the cousins across the pond. And some of it still felt today. Depending on where you are, or, they do take it quite seriously, and rightly so. I mean, it was an event that shaped their country's, history, their, everything from politics to monarchy to religion. And at the same time that's going on, again, still covered in Pike and Shot, you have this massive war, the 30 Years' War, the deadliest war essentially that Europe's ever seen. I can't even remember the number I read one time, but it was in the millions died from plague and starvation, and that's civilians. Like, never mind the soldiers that died. Nobody was a good guy. Everybody, every empire at that time was out for themselves. Alliances were made, alliances were broken. It was dirty. Religion, religious reforms were rampant. You had generals, commanding whole armies and, converting, and taking their army with them.
Yeah.
Wild. Just a wild, crazy time in Europe, and in there, there's other things going on. Some of the Ottoman Empire's in there. The remnants of the wars of religion have still affected a lot of countries. And at the end of the day, you're looking at, in loose terms, you have a Protestant side and a Catholic side, but then you have Catholic France who didn't side with the Catholics. It's just bizarre, right? What a bizarre time.
It's a different
the warfare.
It's a different quite a different era that you don't really see too much of on like the tabletop. The whole historical part of it nowadays, like, because let's be honest with myself, I've only really been into the tabletop historical part of the games last 6 years, right? I've heard about Warlord Games like 10 years prior. It was just a gentleman that I knew who was into historicals and skirmish games, and he kept, name dropping Warlord Games. And I was so stuck on, the Games Workshop train, that was it. And then all of a sudden somebody brought it into the store the one day, and I was like Scooby-Doo, what is this? Just
Totally.
the eyes just went,
I get it.
the pupils dilated, but yeah, like even that era, going back to that era kind of thing, there's a lot in there that people would probably, some people would probably find really, really interesting just on the history part of it, and then of course bringing it to the tabletop to have fun with, and reenacting that kind of stuff. So, and it has a very, very interesting look to the units and the armies and the generals and the, just even the common soldier. So I can see the interest in there, especially even in like a painting side of things. If you love to do that painting, there's a lot of different colors to use, and also the miniatures. Very much like the first time you picked up an Empire, handgunner.
Exactly.
The musket.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
So,
and you got to see those puffy pants and that beautiful mustache.
You painted his pantaloons, and,
exactly. Yeah.
So
I painted one side red, one side yellow, and then I was hooked.
Yep.
Right. So
and
that's how it goes.
And like I played the Empire as well back in the day, and talking with that same gentleman who introduced me the first time to Warlord Games. I remember him talking to me about how I was painting my army, and I was telling him that I was painting him in the colors of the Portuguese, with the white and blue and whatnot, right?
Right.
And, you know, so going back now, thinking about that now, and back to what you said earlier about, you know, look at your background and history and stuff too. And it kind of all fits in, you know, like now that I have way more knowledge and accessibility to a lot of these other miniatures, and I've opened up the floodgates to essentially other systems and other games, you know, there's quite a big possibility that I can do that now, right? And actually have it there and play with it and enjoy it for what it is, right? So
right, and that's just it. And the beautiful thing, you know, about it, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I just got to
Nope.
make this point real quick, is that, you know, you said it, you know, you kind of hinted at it, right? Is that, you know, you love it, someone else is going to love it,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not like that. That's the way wargaming goes. And it's just finding that group, right, of guys that, you know, have the same interest as you. And then they say, hey, you know what? And so, you know, you talked about, you know, run into guys who brought up Pike and Shot. And, you know, this poor guy thinks he's probably alone, you know, in all of Edmonton surrounding area, right? What are we at? Like 1.5 million people or something now,
Yeah.
you know, and he thinks he's the only guy that likes Pike and Shot, right? So, you know, and all it takes, you know, is for him to, I don't know if he listens to the podcast, but, you know, he could shoot someone an email and, you know, through friend of a friend of a friend, he can, you know, get in touch with me and I'll meet up with the guy and run him a demo. I'll show him what it's all about.
Oh,
I don't mind.
Yeah, I've
you know, so
I've dropped your name for sure. And
did you? Okay,
yeah,
right
I was
on.
like,
Cool.
check it out. Like get a hold of some guys. Let me know. You know.
Yeah, totally. It's awesome.
So,
awesome. Yeah.
But,
okay, great.
So, the one thing with the game is I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about just some of the mechanics, like some of the simpler,
Sure,
you know, mechanics of the game. What makes it different for some of the games that you've played in the past and whatnot? And then, of course, I can relate as you're talking about it too.
Yeah.
Like that's I guess that's one thing with a lot of games is what really makes it different in kind of the mechanics of the game that, you know, intrigued you and whatnot to continue playing the game and you know, getting involved with it.
Sure. Yeah. So I think one thing I've always really liked, you know, if you're not talking a skirmish game, like, and when I say skirmish, I mean, you know, six to 10 models kind of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then anything, you know, bolt action, kind of an up, like that model count. I firmly believe there needs to be some form of order system. So, you know, I play a lot of Saga. I'm not going to lie. I have a lot of armies for Saga. I am you know, even before maybe Napoleonics, I am a Dark Ages junkie. My wife would probably say that I've got issues. You know, I make my own shields. I've made spears.
That's right.
You know, I own a helmet. You know, just a ridiculous amount of clothing for that era. I don't even know why I'd buy it. You know, and the first time I wore it all was last Halloween. So
it's because
because I love it, right? I love it, exactly. So, but I think, you know, anything that has a platoon kind of, you know, that 30 model count or greater, and, you know, arguably I would even go as soon as you're past, like, you know, 15 models, you kind of got to have some form of like order system. You know, commanding and yelling at six guys, or, you know, six professional guys know what they're doing, and, you know, it's pretty easy to manage, you know, real life, and so they kind of translate easy to a table.
Yeah.
A tabletop game. But, you know, when you start to get into like 30 guys, you know, well, now someone's got to be leading, someone's got to command, someone's got to give directions, you know, whether it's to all 30 or to, you know, groups of 10. And so, you know, Black Powder, so obviously bolt action, those that play bolt action, they know the order system, right? 2d6 and roll below your rating. So Black Powder, very similar kind of way they go about things. So you're given orders by your brigade commander. So a brigade being, you know, a commander, and you might have, say, 2 to 4 units ish. in his brigade. So he can give the orders individually to each unit, but if he fails, he's not allowed to issue orders for the remainder of the turn. But he can also give brigade orders. And essentially the way it works is, say his command rating is 8, or staff rating is 8. You can have your units kind of do 1, 2, or 3 moves, or combos thereof. So you could say, I want these guys to reform into attack column, so that might be a move. Then I want them to advance to this tree line, and that might be a move. So now you're looking at 2 moves. So you're going to roll 2d6 and roll below your command. For every number kind of below your command is how many orders they execute based on what you previously said. So if you're equal to, it's 1 order. If it's 1 less, so in this case a 7, they would do 1 order. If it's a 6, it's 2 orders. If it's a 5 or less, they do 3 orders. So you've issued them 2 orders, say, reform into attack column and then advance to a tree line. And, let's say you roll a 7. Well, you've only succeeded in giving them 1 successful order. So all that unit's going to do is reform.
Okay.
And so what I really like about that is you have to plan your orders carefully. Now there's plenty of units, army lists, they give bonuses depending on what formation you're in. The French have some special rules where they command better depending on their formation. So that kind of offsets like the command rating, staff rating. It can fluctuate. If you're Austrians, historically they weren't, the greatest of armies, although large. They were a large army. So you get bigger units. They're just harder to command, because their staff ratings aren't as high as say other armies are. So you have to take more time moving them slower with these huge units, because they're kind of a lumbering tank, if you will.
Yeah.
And so. So that's kind of the command system. And then there are modifiers in there, based on, distance you are away from your units, with your commanders. There are some re-roll chances, formations, depending on what formation your units are in, that makes a difference. However, not complicated. That is one thing I will say. It is, the entirety of Black Powder can be summarized on 1 sheet, which is mind-blowing to me. And then, you can print off an army sheet and write the majority of your army rules right on your army sheet. So, between 2 pieces of paper, you're kind of good to go. The one thing I will say about Black Powder, which doesn't happen in Pike and Shot, and it doesn't happen in Hail Caesar, but in Black Powder, the game was trialed and demoed, I do believe, at the Perry's house.
Right.
So infantry, for whatever reason, in the rule book moved 12 inches. So, if you're a regular human and, you're not the Perry brothers who have this, huge play area, you're just your regular person, a big table is 6x4.
Yeah.
So what I play is I just half everything. So if it says 12 inches in the game, it's 6. If muskets shoot 18, they shoot 9. And you can even get a little cheat sheet you just Google Black Powder half range or something, and someone's made a cheat sheet. But so that's kind of like the command system.
Okay.
Shooting straightforward. Yeah. Shooting straightforward, you just need 4 better. There are some modifiers. After that, you get an armor save, air quote. But it's really a morale save. You just gotta, if your morale is, 4+, you just gotta roll far higher. And then, there's, depending on how many hits you take, you start building up damage. The one thing in Black Powder, Hail Caesar, Pike and Shot is you don't remove any casualties.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you saw the demo. You just kind of put chits or tokens down behind your guys. And then they have a threshold, which is known as stamina. And then, most units, I believe it's 3. Some of them are 4. Really tough units are 5. And that's, once they breach that or go above that stamina, then they start making morale check or break checks.
Route check, yeah.
And then, and those can vary. You know, you can be forced to move back. You could do something absolutely ridiculous that you don't want to do, or you just simply run off the board. The one thing that's nice is that when the unit's gone, the whole unit's gone. You just pick them up and take them off the table. And so, you know, I've seen plenty of arguments online that say, well, that's unrealistic. What happens to all these guys? Well, they just simply scatter, you know, or they're taken prisoner, or, you know, or they die. Like, you know, they just shot in the back. You know, they just scattered.
It's a whole different. It's a different mechanic of wargaming, but
exactly.
it keeps it simple and it keeps it clean as well. Because I mean, you're like you said, you got a block of 24 miniatures, you know, and you have what?
Yes.
How many units in your formation and whatnot
like
across
12,
the board?
12, you know, 12 on the table. Like, and
I mean,
you know,
don't get me wrong. Anybody who's played rank and file, who's used to pulling off one miniature for one wound, you know what that's like, and that's fine too. But the system is very much, it flows really good, right?
It does,
and
it does. It has a very nice flow.
Yeah, and it's enjoyable, right? So.
Yeah, it's super fun. And you know, the one thing I will, you know, and people have asked, and this is the one question I get asked all the time. How long does it take you to play a game? You know, because people think, okay, I got 12 units on, you know, I painted, you know, 250 infantry, and you know, I shouldn't even say that, because people are probably listening to this and they're like, well, I'm not playing now. You just said 250 infantry, I'll never play. But you know, you've got 200 models on the table, and you know, most people think it's going to take 6 hours to play a game. So I think I can average now. Sorry, just give me a sec here.
Yeah.
I can average now about 2 to 3 hours a game.
Which is really good, actually.
So kind of like, you know, usually ahead of time I'll come up with, you know, just a really quick like scenario, like, we're going to take the crossroads, or, you know, here's, you know, here's 3 houses on this side, and, you know, and there's a hill on this side, you know, just something kind of to keep the game moving forward. Right. You know, you deploy your forces, you know, it takes about 10 minutes, you know, and then, you know, there's the standard, you know, trash talk. That's about 10 minutes, you know, where you make fun of the other guy's stuff, you know, whether he's like, oh, look, I see you brought all your French, you know, or, you know, he makes fun of my British, you know, because they're missing teeth or something, but I didn't paint it on them, or, you know, just something ridiculous, right? And so, and then, you know, after that, you know, most of the games, you know, they're just 6 turns. You know, it's an I go, you go system. Albeit there are some things you can do, like closing fire, and you can reform depending on your charges and stuff. So there, you know, there's mitigating. But yeah, at the end of the day, once you get the rules down, it takes about 2 to 3 hours to play a decent sized game, with very little hiccups. You know, maybe the odd time you're looking up a rule because you're like, hey, what a weird situation we've been in.
Yeah, which naturally happens, right?
Oh yeah, it happens in every game, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's very smooth, and it flows.
Yeah.
You know, I find bolt action is one of those games that flows. You know, mostly because of the random activation, and you know, I love that. I think it just adds to the chaos of the situation. But again, it's not. It doesn't disrupt gameplay. It's just, you know, you pull a die out of the bag, and then the guy says, "I'm doing this," right? Like, you already know what you need to do, you know. And so maybe it changes every once in a while. But in Black Powder, you know, you're kind of planning, you know, turn 3 and turn 1. You know, and so, you know, your turns 1 and 2 is just you getting up to turn 3. And then hopefully everything works out. You haven't been decimated by cannon fire, or, you know, randomly charged in the flank by cavalry for some weird reason.
On the first turn.
You know, on turn 1, because, you know, someone said charge and it just happened. Yeah, you know, It's just so so little things like that, right? It makes a huge difference. But yeah, like you said, it all flows. And it's the same whether you're, Pike and Shot's the same with LP. But specifically black powder, I know I would agree it's intimidating when you look at it on the table. But once that's painted, man, and you played a few games, you're laughing.
So that's what I gotta say though is you mentioned earlier about maybe people have kind of shied away from it because you have so many miniatures on the board, or to get and to paint up and to deploy. But honestly, when you see it on the board, it's amazing. It's just crazy. It's a crazy sight seeing that much on the board and lined up in columns and or rank and file or whatever the game system you're playing is, seeing all the colors, the uniform, and then just having units marching up and engaging. And then to top it off, because we know we like to put a little bit of a sprinkle on things, is you get yourself some of that cotton. And you lay it in front of your muskets and whatnot when they fire, and it just done.
Yeah.
Right. It makes it so much better.
I've even seen the guys with like the LED lights. They put the little flashing LED lights with the cotton on top.
The ripple fire.
And and it just like I don't know what it is. It's just the top.
Yeah.
It's top drawer gaming when you're doing stuff like that. These huge massive armies, and then the unit fires, so you put cotton in front of them, not only to signify that and I mean it's a great way of saying, hey, I already fired with this unit, right? The cotton's right there.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of the turn, you just pull all the cotton off. It looks fantastic, right? I couldn't even. Yeah, that's become a thing for us now.
Even
the cotton.
Because I know when I first looking at it and whatnot, and I had picked up the rule book before even meeting you and getting a demo in there and whatnot, and just flipping through the rule book, and of course where they have their dioramas and stuff and their units set up, and they're fighting through this little village, and it just blew my mind. I'm like, I want that. I want to see that. Like, I want to play that. I've always been like that. I've been a miniature junkie myself, figure junkie for eons, of course. Right. But to me, one thing that's really like punched it too is the visualization of the battle, especially when you do set up your battlefields. You're fighting on those rolling hills, and there's a patch of green trees and whatnot on the corner, and there's a little cottage that's sitting kind of there with the farmer fields and stuff. Like, that whole thing with these games really amplifies the game itself as well, right? They might not have a lot of stuff that affects you in game, but just having that battlefield, like I had one of my friends the other day, he came to drop something off, and the guys were playing bolt action, and he's just blown away the scenery compared to some of the sci-fi games out there, right? So and it's pretty neat.
I couldn't agree more. And I'll give you all the props in the world, because that bocage table you had at the tournament, I was playing Stefan, and I didn't even care that I was playing, to be honest. I'm playing against, Stefan's stuff was beautifully painted. The table's beautiful. Like, I didn't even care what happened. I was like, this, because it felt, you feel, with certain aesthetics, right? Especially something like that. I don't want to use the term godlike, but you feel like you're above the field, right? Like, you feel like you're watching it happen.
Yeah.
And so when things are painted nicely and you have this beautiful scenery and the aesthetic of it all, really hits home. And so, and I see that, whether it's bolt action or black powder or, majority of the
historicals,
is where you feel it. There's the odd time, depending on the game, whether it's sci-fi or fantasy, where I'm like, okay, yeah, it's very cool aesthetic, right? But it's almost always historical that hits home. And obviously because it's more relatable. I mean, all of this stuff is human based. We're human, so it's definitely more relatable. I don't know. Like maybe if I was a space marine, I'd be way more into 40K. I don't know. But
well, you have the mainstream stuff, which majority of players are into, right? And then
right, exactly.
And it's funny because I found that a lot of these guys who are into the mainstream stuff or the sci-fi stuff, they always have a hint of knowing a little bit of history or historicals, and sometimes they'll actually try to bring that into mainly their Imperial Guard or Military armies. You'll start to see that transition into a futuristic version of it.
Yeah.
But then later on in the years, when they find out that there's historicals that are actually quite accessible, then there's a shift, right? I know a lot of guys who they jumped into the historicals and they got completely out of, that universe or that system, right? Because they enjoyed it more.
100%.
So,
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you couldn't be more right. Kind of one of the jokes I always make is, am I old enough for historical? So, because, when I was younger, when I was like 15, like I said, when I was like 14, 15, I'm watching the Sharp series, like that nothing was available. It was air fixed models and 1:72 scale, crappy plastic, and I won't lie, I did. I bought some of that stuff. I tried to paint it. I was terrible. So I stuck with my sci-fi stuff because it was available, right?
Me too.
At the end of the day, I had one sci-fi game, sitting on my shelf. It's the only, non-historical game. That's not true. I own two non-historical games. Okay, one I'm not going to talk about right now because it's kind of a new adventure. But the one other sci-fi game that sits on my shelf is, I think a lot of people are into. For the simple fact it's a military space model. J Falcons. So that's
some battle
but
tech.
like the other game, yeah. So yeah. So a lot of games I walked away from, right?
Yeah.
Like just straight up. Because historical is more relatable. I like the aesthetic. All things. And for a lot of it, I don't care to learn about something that's not real. When I have all this history at my fingertips, that I actually want to learn about. And that's just me personally.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everyone has to be like that, but that's why I always say, like, am I old enough for this? Like, have I gotten to the point where, and it's not a maturity level thing. It's just, am I ready to say, I'm done playing these games. I'm going to jump into historicals because I want to be a bushy eyebrowed professor while I'm rolling dice. You know what I mean? So, and that's what it boils down to. And I can't believe, I can't count how many times I've played games, depending on who it's with, when it's historical, that, half the time we're gaming, it turns into a history lesson. Like, you're sitting across from the guy and he'll, and you'll ask him, like, why did you paint your stuff like that? Like, why is that unit specifically done like this?
Yeah.
And then they go on some rant about, like, oh, and, 1811, this uniform was issued to, then you're like, oh crap, I didn't know that. So, you learn as you go, right?
Yeah.
Where I lost interest in the sci-fi fantasy type learning. Like, I just don't care. I don't care about elves. I don't kill them all. I don't care. You know what I mean? So, it's just one of those things.
And we all know what we like, right? So and that's fair.
Exactly.
And you know what? I've actually come across that too, where you're especially in the historical part of gaming, you you come across people who have actually, checked some things out. They have reasons why they did this, or reasons why they're playing this specific army because their grandfather was part of it, kind of thing. Or, you get those stories, and you get those just not explanations, but stories essentially of what's going on, like what has kept their interest in this, or why they went that route, or that kind of thing. And it's great because you get to share all that with the guy you're playing with, like, and I tend to call guys battle buddies, right? Because we're literally just your buddies playing this game and having fun, and you're not not worrying about the outcome. You just want to chuck some dice and just have a good time, right? Which tends to happen. And Wednesday nights, it's like 3 hours or so you're doing that for, and sometimes head over to a buddy's place and I'm there for 8 hours doing it, so having supper with them and hanging out and having their kid get involved, and checking out the game, and stuff like that too, right? So
it's true.
So in saying that, like, overall with everything, what would you say is like probably your most favorite part of the game?
Favorite part of like the hobby aspect?
Anything like the historical game?
Oh man. It would definitely be gaming with buddies.
Yeah.
If I'm not a rule book guy, like the rule book is there to, provide you that, rules. That's what it does, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I love building the armies, I love painting, but at the end of the day, getting together with people, playing a game, have a couple drinks, eating chips, laughing at each other's dice rolls, complimenting each other on great paint jobs. If you do like a slow grow, like slow grow leagues and stuff, I love it. Because you get to see the progress of other guys.
Yep.
You get to show them your progress. So, that kind of, I won't use the term community, because that would signify like we have like hundreds of guys doing this, but the group, so to speak, and the group think, and the bringing together of different ideas, all for kind of, one game system is super cool. Hanging out with buddies is probably the best part of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, well, cool. Well, thanks for joining us on the podcast and sharing it. I mean, we'll definitely get things rolling and maybe do a little bit of extra content on the game, the historicals as well. Like you said, you play a lot of different ones, so I'm sure I'll be introduced into many more games in the future.
As they say, the first one's free, right?
Yeah. I've been hearing that comment quite often lately. So, but thanks again for jumping on.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I had a great time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you guys for joining in on this episode as well. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Gave you some good intel and information on historicals and the different stuff that's out there and what's provided for you, and opening maybe the mind on what other games and fun games are out there to play with your buddies. So if you guys do like the episode and whatnot, hit the subscribe button, all that stuff. Give us a follow, give us a like, add any comments if you got stuff to add in. We love hearing that stuff. We'll respond to you quite quickly and definitely spark up some conversations. If you guys got pictures, send it our way as well. We love seeing that stuff. Check out our Instagram. We'll have to, Mike, we'll have to set up something again here shortly. Maybe even try to get some, maybe even like once a month or something at least.
Sure.
Right. This way I'm forced to start working on those blue boxes in the back of my screen here. But yeah, thanks again, and
thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed it, and let us know, and don't forget to build it, paint it, play it, and we'll see you guys on the battlefield. Ciao.
Did you plug the Patreon? We need to plug the Patreon.